Jane Austen. You know the name, you've probably seen the movies. Bonnets, romance, English countryside. But her real genius, it's kind of hidden behind that familiar image. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and figure out what truly makes her one of the greatest novelists of all time. All right, let's get into it.
First, let's talk about her life story, which is, well, it's surprisingly quiet. She spent almost her entire life in one county, Hampshire, super close to her family. There were no dramatic adventures, no grand public scandals, nothing you'd call extraordinary. Her life was pretty normal.
And right away, that gives us this big puzzle, what you could call the Austen paradox. How did a woman who lived such a contained, frankly uneventful life end up creating novels that have had such a massive, lasting impact on the entire world? That's the question we're going to crack today.
Now, the first clue to solving this is understanding the time she lived in and, more importantly, how she pretty much stood against its main philosophy. I mean, technically, she lived during the Romantic Age, but in her heart, her mind, and her work, she was the exact opposite of a romantic.
And you can see the difference is huge. The Romantics were all about these massive emotions, grand passions, and this search for absolute personal freedom. Jane Austen, though, she was planted firmly in reality. For her, happiness wasn't some wild, absolute ideal. Nope, it was found in a careful balance, a mix of good sense and genuine feeling, all while respecting the actual society you live in.
So let's go back to that quiet life of hers. The trick is to stop seeing it as a limitation. You have to reframe it. Think of her small world as the perfect observation deck. Because her life was so uneventful, she had all the time and space she needed to become an absolute master at watching people and understanding human nature.
You can see her life unfolded quietly, but with a real sense of purpose. And get this, by the time she was only 15, she was already writing these hilarious parodies that made fun of the over-the-top, sappy stories that were popular back then. She knew what she thought from a really young age. And you'll notice, when her most famous novels were finally published, she didn't even put her name on them.
That's it. Her novels came out with this simple phrase on the cover, "By a lady." Now, on one hand, this definitely reflected the social rules of the time, which made it really tough for women writers to be taken seriously. But it also says a lot about her. She wasn't out there looking for fame. She just wanted to tell the truth about the world as she saw it.
And this focus on the ordinary, it flows right into her novels. All of her stories are set in this very specific kind of small world, the English countryside. It might seem limited, but for Austen, this small world was the perfect laboratory to study the big, universal truths of how people behave.
So this is her playground. No epic wars, no fantasy quests. Just middle-class families who are totally ruled by class, reputation, and really strict manners. A world where gossip and prejudice are just everyday things. And it was by digging into the tiny little details of this world that she found her most powerful insights. So, how did she capture this world so perfectly? Well, she had a secret weapon. And it wasn't beautiful, flowery descriptions or the author jumping in to explain things. It was dialogue. See, she rarely tells you what a character is like. She just lets them open their mouths and show you.
Her technique is just brilliant. First, she lets the characters talk. And as they do, they reveal everything. How smart they are, how silly they are, their virtues, their flaws. Then she uses this incredibly witty and subtle irony to show you the huge gap between what people say and what they actually mean. And the result? We understand the characters on a deep psychological level, and she never has to spell it out for us. It's amazing.
Okay, so this brings us all the way back to our main question. Why, after 200 years, are we still obsessed with these stories from a quiet corner of England? We've seen all the pieces of the puzzle. Her anti-romantic mind, her sharp observation skills, her mastery of dialogue. It's time to finally solve the paradox.
At the end of the day, Jane Austen's genius is this incredible ability to mix a simple surface, love stories, comedies about manners, with incredibly profound depth about human nature. Her novels are a breeze to read, but they offer endless things to think about when it comes to relationships, society, and the huge challenge of just knowing yourself. And that combination, that's what makes her timeless.
And that leaves us with one final thought, really a challenge for you. Jane Austen proved that you don't need huge dramatic events to find extraordinary truths. Her legacy is basically an invitation for all of us to look a little closer at our own lives and ask ourselves, what big truths are just waiting to be discovered in the small, ordinary moments of your world?